Hi everyone, good morning in India and good evening in Canada. So, welcome once again to the Art of Working Coffee with Founders. It's an amazing journey till now. We've been able to bring in great guests to our program. We had, Vipul Kasera from Team Activators, a young professional from one of my institutes called ISB from Hyderabad. He is the founder of Team Activators. Then we also brought in Shane Wallace, who is the founder of Holkar, an amazing and emerging application which is going to give a lot of jobs to a lot of people across the world. We also brought in a young entrepreneur, Arpit Arora, who is the passive income expert, and he told us how to make money while we are sleeping. Keeping in that in line, today we are going to bring in an amazing person who is going to tell us what is the relevance of his expertise or his field of work in the coming world. And as we have seen, every time we use Facebook, we use LinkedIn, any of these digital media platform, we generate a lot of data. Any company which was going to do business in future or is currently doing very well survives and floats and exploits something called data. Mukesh Ambani, in his one of his latest speech, also said oil data is the next oil. No wonder Mukesh Ambani recently bought Just Dial for nearly 4,000 crore rupees, and that's amazing. I never thought that you can buy something like Just Dial for 4,000 crores. So that is the value of data you have, right? In that series today I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Prashant at Southekal. He is based out of Calgary, Canada. It's late night out there. It's warm summer in India, but surprisingly, it's much warmer in Canada now. And as I see, the temperatures have gone up, and I'm sure being an Indian, he now doesn't miss India because of that excess heat. Dr. Prashant Southekal is, one of those individuals where it is very difficult for me to introduce you through a piece of paper. So I had to put in some effort, and I created one small, slide deck to say what has he studied, right? So let me show you and read out of that because I will not be able to do justice. And I'm telling you this about what I read about him, right? And there would be definitely much more to his profile than this small introduction. So, sharing this, Dr. Prashant Southekal is the founder and managing principal at DBP-Institute. He is the PhD from ESC Lille in France, MBA from my own institute of Kellogg School of Management at Chicago. What an amazing institute, right? At Evanston, adjunct faculty of data analytics at University of Calgary, Canada, IE Business School, Madrid, Spain, a certified Apex and CPIM professional, analytics advisor to SAS Institute, Western Canada. His evalues serve Switzerland and Grihasoft in India. He authored two books till date, wonderful books, Data of Business Performance and Analytics Best Practices. Information management experience from over 75 companies, and mind you, just listen to this. It include SAP, Shell, Apple, PNG, and G, to just name the few of them, right? So this is amazing. I mean, I what else could you ask from a guy like this? Dr. Satekal, welcome to the program Coffee with Founders. It took me so much of time just to introduce yourself. Just tell me something if I've missed.
Thanks, Atul. It's a pleasure to be in your show. It's every time I talk to you, I learn something from you. Your energy, your passion, your ideas. It's so contagious. I'm glad to be in this show. I'm looking forward to learn from not just from you, but from the speakers, from the other people as well about their challenges, the opportunities they see, and how I can potentially help them in with my experience and expertise.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, I just wanted to understand. See, what I've seen is those amazing institutes and great places of work. But you definitely started somewhere from Mysore, India, right?
Yes.
We would love to listen to you about your journey from Mysore to Calgary, Canada.
Yeah, so as most of you know, Mysore is a relatively a small place. At least when I was doing my engineering in Mysore, it was relatively a small place. So the one thing which helped me in Mysore was the kind of networks or the connection with people. It was an intimate connection, but at the same time I didn't have much exposure as well, having raised in Mysore. Like the first time I sat in a flight was when I was 27. So which might be new. Like I had never sat in a flight. I didn't even know how a flight would look like, or sitting inside a flight would look like. So, but incidentally, my first flight was when I was 27, and that was from Bombay to London, and that was an international flight on more so. So I did my engineering in Mysore. Then I was picked up in the campus by Kirloskar Electric, which gave me exposure to the corporate world. Like all this while, before in Mysore, it was pretty much my own small network of friends. But when I joined Kirloskar, it gave me a different perspective of how the corporate world was looking like. And incidentally, most of the people who were part of this training program, where I was a GET, graduate engineering training, were ex-Air Force people. So it gave me a kind of a different perspective. They brought in that kind of military training to the corporate world, which gave me a very good exposure. And I left Kirloskar in '99 because of the IT boom, and I did my master's from Triple IT in Bangalore, and I was picked up in the campus recruitment program by Procter and Gamble for their office in Brussels. So that's where I got the work permit
So,
to go to.
let me count. So you were at Mysore. From Mysore, you came to Bangalore to finish your post graduation,
Correct,
and from there you will picked up by PNG, right?
correct. And
And that is for Europe, Brussels.
yeah, that is for Europe, Brussels, and that is where I got my first flight ticket to fly from India to London, and from London, of course, the next flight I took to Brussels. So it was a new experience because like I had never been to even Bombay, like I had never been to any other city except Bangalore and Mysore, to even to Chennai or Hyderabad or Bombay or Delhi. Like I was restricted to Karnataka, and then I straight away went to Europe, and it was a different experience. The culture, everything was new for me for the first few months. The way people talk, the culture there, the people work, and all those things was new. Then unfortunately, I had some kind of a family emergency in at home, so I came back. I came back to Bangalore in 2004, and then I worked for Infosys for 2 years. Then from Infosys, I joined GE, and from GE, I joined SAP, and SAP transferred me for a project for 2 weeks to Calgary for a banking project in 2009. So that project, the scope expanded, and from 2 weeks it became 1 month, 1 month to 3 months, and 3 months to 6 months, 6 months to 2 years, and I got my residency, and I ended up staying here.
And oh, that's wonderful. So now how did you manage to get into Kellogg's,
Yeah.
and then you did your PhD, right? After
No, no,
that,
it was
after that.
it was other way around. In fact, when I was in Belgium, I enrolled for the PhD program at KU Leuven, and as a part-time PhD student. So, and because of the family issue, I had to stop and go back to India, and then I started my PhD program from India in 2007. And so that PhD program from ESC Lille gave me that flexibility where I didn't have to quit my job and do my PhD, basically a continuation of the program or the PhD program with a different set of professors. The topic more or less remained the same. And then I finished my PhD in 2004, 2014, after taking
Okay.
almost 14 years. I started formally in 2001 and I finished in 2014. Then I joined the executive MBA program at Kellogg in 2019 while I was working in Canada. So at that time there was a kind of lull period in my company where we were not getting much projects. So I was thinking, okay, let me try to reinvent myself and learn some new skills, network myself, and so I joined the Kellogg MBA program. It was an expensive program. Some people advised me
But
not to do.
Prashant, today at least one thing we could have done is we could have both worn our Kellogg's T-shirt and be on this program. At least we should always, try to push for our institute out there.
Yeah. So if you had told me before, I would have changed the hoodie to Kellogg hoodie, right?
So next time, don't worry, we'll call you back again on this program. We'll put I have a hoodie, I have a host of t-shirts and mugs, and anyone who comes from Chicago, I always tell them, can you pick up something from the store out there, right? So
Yeah.
after, so you did PhD and then you did MBA. Oh wow, that was so wonderful. So wonderful. Right. So tell me one thing. I mean, a lot of people who are professionals also realize that once they get into the job, they hardly steady. But where does this energy come to you from? I mean, I can't even count how many institutes you have been to study and teach and things like that. Where does that, energy coming from?
Yeah, it's interesting. Probably I would say out of fear.
Okay.
So
Okay. Now explain that.
yeah, I always want to be in relevant. I always fear that I might get redundant or irrelevant in the market. So, and I think that, and what has helped me so far in my career is staying current or relevant. And one of the tools which I use to stay relevant is to acquire the right knowledge and networks, more knowledge plus networks. So those are the two things which I look for, and that has kind of
Let, let
pushed me.
me let me stop you here because what you said is very important, and that is coming from you who is already so. I mean, who has already achieved quite considerably well, right? And then the word which you used is staying relevant, right? And staying relevant is so important in the current world, and I'm sure you would agree with me that I anticipated lot of digitization modernization would happen in next 5 to 8 years, and then suddenly the world will start moving towards more automated solution for various businesses. But now I see that post covid everything has been so fast tracked that willy-nilly best of the organizations and the slowest of the organizations also have started realizing the importance of digitization, getting onto data, cutting costs, people, and the word is staying relevant. And that is where people who have studied and have been, updating themselves are becoming more relevant now. Anyone who did, a great, he may be a topper in IIT 10 years back has no relevance now because that knowledge has no value at this stage, right? Unless and until you have updated. So what do you say to large number of professionals on LinkedIn and our people on art of working and who are also watching this particular program, how important it is to be relevant?
There is one saying which somebody reminded me a few days back, which everything you ever wanted is on the other side of fear. So the same thing applies to me. Like when I look back and say what I wanted, it was the fear that prevented me to go to the other side. And when I think back, why did I have that fear? So it was mainly because of the lack of confidence. Like for example, you have seen just like you gave the example of this IIT, but you see in the newspaper articles in India, somebody with an MTech qualification is applying for a railway porter job. Why? One of the reasons is lack of confidence. And the same thing applied to me as well, especially when I was finishing my engineering from Mysore. I didn't have much confidence because I didn't have much exposure. So over a period of time, I realized that the three things really are important when you want to build that kind of confidence. One thing is acquiring relevant skills and knowledge. Number two is the right network. Whom are you associated with? Do you have a kind of about 20, 25 people around you who can support you, who can coach you, and vice versa too. Like, are you really concerned about their success, just like you are concerned about your own success? So, do you have that kind of network? And lastly, some kind of bank balance as well, right? All said and done, money is also important. So if you have a good amount of bank balance, you are confident that you can take some risk. You can, like, for example, when I did my program at Kellogg, if you look at the money, it was almost like 1 crore rupees. So people might be, some people have wondered, like, well, why am I spending 1 crore when I'm in my 40s on education? But it was worth it. So you need that kind of, to make that kind of investment, you need that right kind of bank balance as well. So if you put an order, for example, to build confidence, it's going to be knowledge, networks, and a little bit of bank balance.
Perfect, perfect. I mean, at the end of the day, all this education which you did is the investment, right? And now you're reaping the benefits of this investment which you did in yourself, right? And it's a learning is an ongoing process. It doesn't start with class grade one and ends at moment you finish your MBA if you reach to that level, right? It is a continuous process. The world is changing so fast that even Elon Musk at times feels that he's left behind, right? So, okay. So coming on to this, tell me, I mean, let's come to the topic which we are discussing about data analytics. You have written these wonderful books, which I can see right behind you. The posters are there. I always, whenever I see these books, I really feel that I am too small to ask such technical questions to you. So let me put a very general one. What is data analytics and how is it relevant for a person like me who is not a data scientist, who is not an engineer, who doesn't actually love maths also, right? So number crunching has come to me only because I was in corporate. I had to go through, I had to learn my Excel and advanced Excel little bit and come to it. But I can see the world is changing. There's so much of information bosses require. So if I'm a supply chain person, how is it relevant to me?
Okay, so let me keep the definition fairly simple and at a very high level, rather than talking a lot of three-letter acronyms and technical terms. So the simple definition of analytics is using data to answer business questions to get insights to improve your decision making. So it's not about Python, it's not about R, it's not about regression, it's not about ANOVA, t-test, or all those kind of things. The first things which you need to get value out of data and analytics is what questions for which you are seeking answers for. So I tell my clients, no questions, no data means there is no analytics. So that's the definition of analytics. And for as a supply chain professional, this analytics could be on anything. It could be on improving the customer service. It could be on inventory management. It could be on improving the networking capital. It could be on spend management, whatever it, or it could be procurement compliance, so on and so forth. So the possibilities are kind of endless. But you will be able to realize the value of data and analytics only if you have the right questions. So no questions and of course no data means there is no analytics. And yeah, so I would go with the definition of analytics like that, Atul.
Yeah, so basically you generate data and then you want to find out some wisdom out of those data. It's called analytics, right? That's understandable. But do you think that this is only applicable if I would have been an engineer from the IITs or one of the top engineering college, or anything if I've done just a regular graduation or a post graduation, even some cases MBA? Can I also continue to pursue this?
Oh, absolutely. Like I am a strong believer in a concept called a citizen data scientist, which is basically people who are closer to the business and data, of course, are the ones who are best positioned to leverage data out of analytics. Uh, so, or insight or the value out of analytics. For this term, the citizen data scientist was actually coined by Gartner. So, in other words, whether you are a realtor, whether you are an accountant, whether you are a physician, whether you are a school teacher, whether you are a finance manager, CFO, CPO, whatever it is, in today's world, every company is a data company. So that means every person working in business is a data person. So that means you need to have some basic skills of data and analytics to get value out of them. And it doesn't have to be extreme, like you don't need to have a PhD in computer science or statistics or mathematics to get a value out of data. Even some kind of a basic high school level mathematics is good enough where you can build a very strong use cases, or the majority of the use cases, 90-95% of the use cases in data analytics can be built with just high school level kind of mathematics. So if you have that kind of knowledge, you are that should be good enough to get value out of data where you can derive insights. And let me also remind people that when you look at data analytics, it's not just two components, data and technology. It has got two more components as well, which is assumptions which you are making, and next number four is the ethics. So there are four legs of the stool in the world of data and analytics: data, algorithms, assumptions, and ethics. So these are the four things which you need to achieve successful to be a successful data analytics professional. Not a PhD in computer science, not a PhD in mathematics. That's all secondary. So these are, first is questions, next is bringing those four legs of the stool together.
Okay. So basically, I mean, I don't have to actually learn the language of coding and be the geek or be a computer guy and, just do all this, right? So I can be a normal, regular HR person, or I could be an operations or sales and marketing person and still be part of the data analytics, which is because I also believe that, companies in future, and I seriously believe that companies in future will not keep a separate data analytics guy in your domain just to give you data. So they would say expect you to generate report, they would expect you to read the report and then come out with solution. So ऐसा होगा नहीं, just for people in Hindi who understand, who would like to understand this much better, कि आपके लिए एक और एम्प्लॉय को एम्प्लॉय किया जाएगा जो उस रिपोर्ट को पढ़ के पूरा एक्सप्लेन करके आपको बोलेगा नॉट टेक डिसीजंस. So it is very important that if you have to grow in future, and I'm talking future of from which starts today to n number of years from now, learn this important skill and be relevant, because there is no one else who is going to read your data. You need to do it yourself and be relevant in the organization. Is that right, Prashant?
Absolutely, 100%, Atul. Like for example, if you look at some of the both the two services which my company does, which is consulting and education. Of late, most of the work which we have been getting on the consulting side is from the business people, like for CFO, the procurement officer, the HR folks, trading, so on and so forth. So very little work these days I'm getting from the IT departments. So that's number one. Next, number two, on the training side, if you look at the kind of work which I'm doing, right now I'm doing a program at University of Calgary, which is on the introduction to data analytics. We have 19 people in the course, and all the 19 people are from business. Like we have two people, one is a firefighter, one is a physician, one is from the Calgary Police Department. So that means everybody right now, as you said, is trying, who is closer to the data, wants to know how I can get value out of this data, which has been captured, which the organization is capturing for years and years, to get more insights and value for the company. So, and
Right.
also, like this morning I did a training for CFO Academy, which is in Dubai. Next week on Tuesday, I'm doing one more training from CFO Universities, which is based in Seattle. And then I have a training for Supply Chain Canada. So you can see that if you look at the people who are coming for all these trainings, it is the people from the business side. So they are, everybody is, as you said, today we can't afford to have a separate bunch of people sitting in an ivory tower churning out insights. We need people who are closer to data, who can understand the business well. They should be equipped with the right skills and techniques so that they can derive value out of analytics.
When I had amazing career myself. So I was a typical colonel of the Indian Army, and who had bunch of clerks who would give them wonderful reports, and I would use my red pen, as the commanding officer, to correct that draft, and it would be just two letters and things like that. And from there, I got into the corporate, and that too in retail, which had only data being generated, right? It took me so much of time to understand the entire conversion. But there also I had wonderful set of people who will do the Excel sheet work for me, right? And then they would type everything, and I would just ask him to change certain columns and rows and say, okay, finally, give me this percentage, that percentage, and then I would derive my wisdom out of that. After some time, those Excel people, the so-called data entry operators just vanished, because the company decided either you learn or you vanish. So I had to learn, and one of my friends taught me advanced Excel. I won't say I'm a very pro in that, but fact of the matter, at least I started doing something. And then I started creating my sheets to understand macros, right? But I can tell you one thing, it's been, I mean, I was forced. There was no other option left than to learn. So I would request anyone who is listening to our broadcast today, don't get into that corner where you're forced, right? Take time, put in your investment, learn everything, and do. So tell me one thing: if I'm just a sales guy or a HR person, what all courses I need to do just to understand how do I get this particular skill?
Okay, so great question, Atul. So uh, the the first thing we advise which I would give is accept the fact that there is lot of free material which is available in the internet. But to access those free material or are not very expensive materials, you need to have tremendous amount of discipline. So the first prerequisite is the curiosity. Next, number one, number two is discipline. So let me give you an example. So the introduction to data science, which is from Coursera, there is John Hopkins University runs that program. So it's a MOOC course that massively online course which people can enroll and take it. So if you can spend about $300, you can get the 10 course introduction to data science specialization from John Hopkins in about 4 to 6 months. But
Okay.
unfortunately, many people are not able to build that kind of discipline, and they start, and very few people I have seen have completed the 10 course program. So the first thing is, and the same is if you go to YouTube, if you want to learn Python, for example, Microsoft has put a 140 course material in YouTube, where if you can build that kind of discipline, you can get good Python skills without spending anything. And Python, it's an open source
Wow.
language. You can download the programming language and write out all the programs by yourself. So the first thing is, while you need the drive and curiosity, you also need the discipline to maintain this. So there's a lot of free materials, whether it's or almost free, I would say, Coursera, YouTube, all those things, which you can leverage and get value out of this. Number one. Next, number two, if you are working in a corporate, for instance, leverage the ecosystem which is already there in the company rather than starting something new, unless you are in the university. For example, let's assume that you are working for Reliance. And if you are working for Reliance, I am assuming that SAP is their ERP or the system of record,
Yes,
or
it is.
They
It is.
would have a huge SAP footprint. So leverage
Yeah.
the SAP ecosystems. So if you are in the universities, don't try to invest more. Like try to leverage R or Python and then build something good where you can share it as part of GitHub, Kaggle, and so on. So the bottom line is, for one thing is to know about the tools. Next is also about applying these tools as well. The third thing is about today with like for example, you and me, we haven't met each other personally, but still we are collaborating on quite a few things. How? Because
Yes.
of the power of social media, LinkedIn. So there is so much of things which we can learn from other experts too. So follow experts in LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever they are, and see what they're doing. And that's number three. And the fourth thing is about give. Learning is all about giving. It's about sharing knowledge. So yeah, but so somebody told me a few years back, Prashant, what are you doing here? Why are you going and teaching in this place, that place, sharing all your tips and tricks? These people will get your knowledge and they will be a competitor for you at the job market. So I felt really sorry for this guy. What are you talking today? So I told him, I don't know whether they'll get my job or not, but one thing is for sure. Every time I teach, I am getting better. So share your knowledge. If you are a good writer, write a blog, put it in LinkedIn. If you are if you love coding, write your code and share it in GitHub. If you are a great video maker, build the right use cases, create a YouTube video and upload it. Share your knowledge. So these are the four major activities, things which I would say for a new person who's getting into this field. Just to summarize,
Right.
don't
Yeah.
spend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So just to summarize,
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah.
so
Please summarize me.
summarize. Number one, don't spend money unnecessarily. Leverage a lot of free material in the internet. Next, number two, uh, and learn about how to apply these tools. If you are part of this ecosystem, leverage those ecosystem. Next, number three, network with experts, leverage social media. And next, number four, share your knowledge.
Okay, so perfect, perfect. I mean, this is amazing. So let me bring to you what we did in Art of Working. So Art of Working, I realize, and that is my learning of life. That earlier it used to be so difficult to learn. I mean, you had to enroll into a particular college. You had to go physically out there. You had to spend money to be there. You had to leave your job to be there. And this is what did. And most of the time, since I came into the corporate, that I had to stop my job, use my money, take sabbatical, and then I'm still repaying my loans for my education, right? And my wife is very, very upset. She says, if your parents would have given you adequate education, we would not have been paying for your loan. So, so you don't expect your wife to pay for your loans, right? So you're very right. Even to take a book, reference book from a library used to be a problem. You could not take it home. But now knowledge is available across the board, right? You just Google, it would come into any format you want. You want to read a book, you want to read a article, you want to read a blog, you want to see a YouTube, you want to get to the expert. And one thing which you said is network. Dr. Southekal is today with us in a live broadcast. To anyone who is watching this, whether live or recorded, should immediately send a LinkedIn request to Prashant, because this is how you grow network. And yesterday, like Prashant, in last 7 days, while we were advertising about coffee with founders, so many people who are part of your network joined my network, right? So this is another great time to network, find people, find mentors like you who can guide you through. And I remember last time when my son was selecting a program, you guided him to find what econometrics is there in Maastricht University in Netherlands, right? So I mean, imagine, I mean, we hardly knew each other. I could just request you, can you help me out? And people by nature are helpful, right? So if you just have to connect to people to do that, great, great. And one thing which you said is, you don't have to spend money. Only thing you need to do is be disciplined. Start something to end something. Don't start something for your satisfaction that I started. The satisfaction should come once you finish it, right? And that is how you will remain relevant. Tell me one thing. We have spoken about education. Which are the major organizations or companies you have been associated with in terms of consultation, in terms of work, in terms of anything like a job or something like that?
Uh, like off late, one thing which has happened in the post-COVID world is location as is not a constraint to offer your expertise. So earlier,
Right.
before COVID, most of the clients, the first thing where they used to ask is, where are you based? Okay, if you are in Canada or if you are in Calgary, oh, okay, that was like a kind of inhibitor for them to pursue the discussion further. But after when COVID has hit, we have seen that most of them have or at least IT consultants are pretty much working from home, right? IT, but the technology professionals. So that means whether you are working in Bangalore or whether you are working in Barcelona or whether you are working in Boston, if you are working from home, it doesn't matter where you are, because it's your home. You are not in front of me. So that has created opportunities for many people about accessing clients in different parts of the world. So if you look at some of the work which my company has done in the last, say, 1.5 years or so, we have done work in Greece, in Vietnam, in US, of course, which is our neighboring country, and of course in Canada, in India as well. So which wouldn't have happened if COVID was not there. So one of the things, because of COVID, for instance, we have got access to new markets and new opportunities as well. And the requirements in or the need for all these companies is pretty much the same. How do we leverage data, and how do we leverage data, including analytics, to get better business performance? So that's a kind of
So
theme.
you worked with PNG, you worked with Apple and SAP and SAS and which all. I mean, this excites me. I mean, these are
Yeah,
great
so
brand names.
with the PNG, I worked in the early 2000 when I after my masters when I went when I went to Europe. So I was there till 2004. So then Well, after I came back, I worked in GE in India, and of course, I used to travel a couple of times to the US as well. Then I worked in SAP. So I joined the SAP Bangalore office in 2008, and within a few months, I was sent to Calgary, and and since after 2012, when I started my own company, I've consulted for some many Canadian companies which are based in Calgary. And after COVID, the opportunities expanded to other locations as well. Like right now, we are doing a project for a company in Seattle, for one company in Greece, one in Zurich, and one and other one in Netherlands. So it's all because of globalization and digitization and COVID.
Okay, tell me one thing. I mean, we talked about courses, we talked about various learning things. Which are the areas of jobs? If I mean, what all it opens if I just pick up some, skills of data analytics, and obviously my request to all the, professionals who are listening or watching this particular program is, it is very important to get us certified. Sometimes I tell people, the difference between a good chemist and a bad doctor is the MBBS, right? For a headache, you may just talk to a chemist and take a medicine, but for a heart attack, you still would go to that doctor. So certify yourself from a relevant organization, and you can at least put it on a CV, show it to your recruiter, and say this is what it is. So if I pick up a course and get myself certified, so which are the areas of work which can help me further grow?
Yeah. So the first thing is, if you look at data analytics, I'm looking at data analytics as four major components in the data analytics lifecycle. One is data capture, where the data is actually captured, which could be your ERP, CRM, supply chain, ECM, whatever those systems are. In one system. It is often there in multiple systems. So you need to integrate the data which are there in diverse formats, in diverse technology systems across the IT landscape in the company, and bring it to one common system or one common database, which is known as a data warehouse in almost all the companies. So that kind of work is known as data integration. And the third thing is about data science, where from the data which you have captured and stored in the data warehouse or the common database, you run your statistical models, whether it's regression, whether it's your exploratory descriptive analytics, whether it's your hypothesis testing, whatever it is, you run it on the data warehouse and derive insights. And the last thing is, once you derive insights, you have to visualize it, you have to present it, you have to transform those insights into decisions and ultimately into business actions. So if you look at the four stages of the data lifecycle, for example, many people unfortunately think that the jobs are in the data science world, but unfortunately, that's not true. So the most of the if you look at it, take a course on Python and say masters in data science, for example, which is a 2-year master's program, for example, and come out of the market. So many people are actually shocked when they realize that there is not many jobs in the field of data science. Why? Because you might be wondering, oh, there is some article which I saw, there's going to be millions of jobs that are created in the field of data science. So actually, people have mistook the data science as data analytics. There are millions of jobs in data analytics, but very few jobs in data science. So where are those million jobs? The million jobs are most of them in data capture and data integration. So which is 80% of the work I call them as is in data engineering. So first of all, you understand where are those jobs. So if you go and take a course in Python and thinking that there are millions of jobs in the world, unfortunately there are not many jobs in Python skills or even R or SAS via or whatever it is. But there are millions of jobs in the other two areas, which could be on data integration, data capture, master data management, data security, data privacy, so on, the data analysis or just analysis of data. So you need to understand that. Next, number two, if given a chance, where would you focus on? Again, if you're based on your background, you pick the right areas. If you are more about a programming or a technical person, it would be better you focus on the early stages of the data lifecycle, like for example, building skills in SAP or building skills in Informatica or MuleSoft or Dell Boomi or Informatica, so on and so forth. So there are a lot of jobs there. It's not necessary as soon as you somebody talks analytics, it's not that you rush to the nearest training course and do a course on Python. So it's not about that. In fact, if you want to do Python, you don't have to go anywhere. You can sit in front of your PC, log on to YouTube, and start doing the course right away.
Right.
So this is where I would do. So
Right.
don't get carried away thinking that there are jobs in data science. Unfortunately, there are not many jobs.
So I'll tell you one thing. A few days back only, I mean, whenever I interact with you, I also start learning certain things new. So I just understood the difference between data science and data analyst. Right. So it's quite a different thing altogether. There is something like a Newton who created the science part of it and rest of the user part of it. Right. So there are more jobs in the user part of it than discovering something new as a science. Right. Science is more like discovery, inventing, finding something larger, which is far and few, that takes long time, long in gestation period and investment and time. So that's a very different field altogether. Great, great. So you have told us about the courses which are available. You have also told us about the jobs that can be looked into, and obviously this analytics is also applicable to any job which you're doing in future. I would like to also understand that today, through Art of Working and Coffee with Founder, there are so many professionals who are going to watch this program or currently watching live. If they have to come to you, Prashant, and ask you certain relevant questions and network with you to take your guidance, would you be available to them?
Yeah, absolutely, Atul. Always glad to meet enterprising people, driven people. So I'm always available. In fact, generally, often, like Saturday morning, I just keep for about half an hour, 45 minutes for all those phone calls. Whoever needs any help, whether it's consulting or education or just a kind of, hey, which course should I take? Should I take this course from this university or this university? So a lot of people call, and I'm always open to help.
That's really wonderful, because that's what people look forward to. And my my submission to most of our people and professionals who are onto various digital media platform and watching us, whether an Art of Working, I must tell you, is available on LinkedIn, it's available on Facebook, it's available on Instagram, it also does some tweeting, and it's also on a platform called Tumblr. If you have ever used it, it's also onto Pinterest. So we try to connect to every kind of people onto digital media platform and bring. So I would request all of them, in case they have any kind of information that they need or to decide something or to work on, they can connect with Prashant. Right, Prashant. So we talked about great stories, learnings and success stories. Tell me something which is very personal, that have you ever faced any failure? Sometimes you felt that you've not been able to do what you wanted to do, and you still managed to come out of it successfully and do what you're currently doing.
Yeah, it's pretty much. There's a lot of failures or challenges which I have seen. Like for example, when I was in grade 8, for example, I failed in mathematics in the one of the monthly tests in the school. Like you remember when you are from a middle class family in India, and if you fail in mathematics, what a disaster it would be, right? Like you have no future. People will think that if failing in mathematics from a middle class family in India, you are like useless.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh God, I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, so I worked hard, made a plan, and found those gaps. And in grade 10, I got full marks, 100 of 100 in mathematics, and in engineering also I got full marks. In fourth semester engineering, I got 125 out of 125. So if you look at one of the failures which has been where I realized that okay, there are some kind of corrections which I need to do. So which is what I did as a high school kid. But it was not just high school. Even at work, for example, there are many times where you run into challenges. But it's but So sometimes you also get emotional as well. But of late, it's been with more gray hair in my head. It's I've been more mature, but there's been a lot of failures as well. But one thing is in every failure or challenges, if you can identify your learning aspect, uh, so that that failure uh, is not just taken for the sake of failures. Like for example, I have seen a lot of people these days talking about something failing means being cool. For example, it is true, provided you are able to understand what you are the learning out of that failure. If you just think that failure for the sake of failure just because you want to be cool or something like that, that's not really valuable. So if you can identify the learning, so that's what it's important.
Yeah, that's very important. So we had a guest few weeks back, Shane Wallace, and he was saying, failures are good, but only if you learn lessons out of them, right? So if you can learn out of them and find a new way, it is fantastic. So there, even if you have not been able to do well, you can always pick up your career. Yeah, at times I tell a lot of people, in my own career, that somehow I always felt that I am the supply chain person, right? It is there in the DNA of mine, right? So I would always say, I would never think anything more than supply chain, right? I used to write about supply chain, speak about supply chain, sleep with supply chain, and I used to find work in supply chain. But then I decided to become an entrepreneur, and now I'm looking at a horizon which has got so many other areas of work. So it is very, very important that you learn out of your failures and find another way of doing things which you want to do, right? So tell me one thing, currently what is the future of work which we are looking at? I mean, how do you also not only data analytics, but your understanding, and after meetings all these senior people in multinational companies across the world, how does the world look for us professionals? Are we going to lose our jobs in because of AI and machine learnings and various other things, or is possibility that humans will continue to earn?
uh, you know the so one of the skills which I think people can, it's a very critical skill to have in these days, is adaptability. People have been talking, like at least when I started my career, the focus or schooling, for example, the focus was more on IQ, how good you are in maths or critical thinking and all those things. But later, when I started my career, I started realizing that along with IQ, or more than IQ, EQ was important. How do I work with different people? But off late, I would say, at least in the last 6, 7 years in my career, what I have realized is that adapting to the situation is more important. So let me give you an example. So in Calgary, some of you might be knowing, it's kind of an oil town. So majority of the companies are in the oil industry here. So in the 2016 or 15 end, when the oil prices tanked, so I lost my biggest contract with one of the oil companies here. So, the, but, it was like kind of a failure. That one thing which I did out of that during that time was I put all my eggs in one company, and all the relationships, everything which I had was in this company. And this company terminated the contract because oil price tanked. There was no work for anybody. Layoffs were happening, vendors were let go, and all those things. So, so at that time, what I realized was that I need to build my network outside Calgary, outside the oil industry. So at that time, I started thinking about my second line of business, which is training. Number two, one. Next, number two, my PhD pretty much till 2015 was kind of dormant. I just had it I never used it. So I said, okay, let me use my PhD skills and try to see whether I can monetize it. So that's where I wrote my first book, which is Data for Business Performance. The book itself, doesn't make much money, but it gives a tremendous amount of credibility in the market. So somebody bought a book in Atlanta and he connected with me in LinkedIn, and after a few months, he gave me a contract. So I didn't know this person at all. I never met him in person, but it's all through the power of publishing a book and, of course, social media, and I ended up getting this contract. So the thing is, adapting to the situation is one of the most important. Even in COVID times, for example, I'm pretty sure whichever companies who are quickly are able to adapt to the new ways of working are the ones which have survived or even thrived. and some companies are even closing down. So that applies to everybody today. If you can identify those skills or the mindset to adapt yourself to the new ways of working, so that's the greatest skill to have.
So, in fact, what I would say is the Darwin's theory has now been transformed. Earlier, the Darwin, said survival of the fittest. I would say post-COVID, it is survival of the fittest and the quickest. The early you understand how it is in art of working. In fact, we tell people and teach people or counsel people on three the A's. That's called triple A's for survival in the current environment. And this current environment is not going to change. It is going to remain like this. Don't expect that suddenly the COVID thing will vanish. So I was, watching a very renowned person onto YouTube in one of his broadcasts. He said maximum, and that's a study that has been done by one of the leading firms, that maximum that we can go back and rebound back to earlier way of living is as much as 65%. So 35% of the world would go to a new way of living, right? New way of interacting, new way of working. There would be new industries coming in, new skills required. And in art of working, we say it is called triple A, which include being agility, adaptability, and alignment. You be agile to the changes that is happening, adapt to those changes, and align yourself with the current world that is happening. Don't expect 40 years back a doctor's son was a doctor, a professor's son was a professor, and I was an army officer's son who became an army officer. That doesn't stand to logic now. Even if you have done engineering in a particular subject, may not be the most suitable after 4 years. In fact, as I read earlier also, the relevance of the knowledge is lost.
Atul, Atul, I can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. So basically, what I was saying is that earlier it was very easy to adapt to what your parents were doing and get into the same job. But the fact of the matter is that now you will find that your own education, which you did 2 years back, 4 years back, is becoming irrelevant. So you have to keep updating yourself. So the triple A of agility, adaptability, and alignment is very mandatory for any professional, for that matter, or anyone for as a human for survival. Okay, so Dr. Prashant, it has been great to understand all these wonderful things. What would be your message to the professionals in the current environment, besides what you said is be adaptable to the change? So, how do we see ourselves? What are the key learnings for you in your life to say this is the path to growth? Your own experience.
Um, I would say two major things. One is the first thing is to be grateful to what you have. So that's it. If you are grateful to what you have, that's a good foundation to adapt yourself to the new ways of working or the new environment. That's number one. Next, number two is to focus on building that kind of a community or the network of people around you, so that you both you and the and that kind of group which you have created are benefiting from each other. So that coalition or a network is absolutely essential. And the third way is to focus on learning. So if you are not learning or if you are not building your networks, so that means there is a kind of risk which you see. And so that, for example, when you talk about networks or where you are positioned, like if you have a great skill, for example, like there is one saying, if you are selling gold in an onion market, it's your mistake. It's not, you can't blame the people who have come to buy onions. right? The same thing happens in the networking field as well. So where you are in that market, in that position, so that your skills are respected and valued. So that's where the networking aspects come to the will come to the picture. And of course your skills, your knowledge, so on and so forth, which are important as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, three takeaways. Firstly, is be thankful, have that gratitude. So that's what they say. Have that gratitude of thanking the world in current environment, Prashant. Even if you can breathe well, you should be thankful. Something as easy as breathing has become a blessing, right? If you can breathe well, you can eat well, you got a shelter on your head, you are blessed, right? The life we all professionals live is desired and prayed by billions across the world. Just look at any part of the country which is troubled. At least you're safe in your home. You have plans for your career. You're looking at to increasing your value in the world. But there are people who are just barely surviving, right? Just living for the day. They are not sure whether they would see the next sun. So have that gratitude. Secondly, is we as humans have been born to be networked. That is when we became community, that we started dominating the world, and it is just about few thousand years when the human being decided to create a community, and that community brought in security, it brought learnings. So why should you lose the most relevant lessons of our time? Humans have only grown and become on the top of the food chain because they are networked, because Einstein told us something and we are still learning, because Mr. Steve Jobs created something and we are doing that in India. So networking is key. That is what you are saying. And third, which you said, and this is very right, learning is living. You cannot afford to live without learning. Your neurons have to fire every day to not only to upgrade your skill, but even for body to be relevant. Body starts dying in parts if you are not going to teach the body new thing every day, be it your skill, be it your health, be anything you want to do, right there. I don't say that you become a data analyst, all of you become a data analyst tomorrow, but at least become a good painter. You become a good singer. Learn how to, play a guitar. Or nothing else. Go and start walking around. Make yourself relevant to your body. Otherwise, body would consider you to be a useless part of this world and probably, say it's time to go. So, three part which you have given, yeah, the life lessons for us is network, be relevant, and also to learn every day, and at the end be thankful to the world and to yourself and to the god and your family and everyone. Show gratitude. So thank you so much, Prashant. It was amazing interacting with you as usual. And I would request all our, audience, whosoever is connecting now or subsequently would connect on to the LinkedIn live recording versions, to connect with Dr. Prashant at Southekal. They can send in the LinkedIn request, and I'm sure, as he is himself, confirmed, that he would go all way to support, help, and mentor these people. And as usual, thank you so much. What time is it, Prashant, in Calgary, Canada?
It's 2 minutes to 12 midnight.
Oh, midnight. So your wife would definitely kill you if you don't reach before midnight. So 1 minute before midnight is good enough for you,
Yeah,
right?
Atul, I see a couple of questions. There's one from Manoj, which is saying,
Okay,
how do you handle this too much of knowledge which is in the internet and learn something? So
perfect.
but one
Yeah.
of the things is the objectives. So what you want to learn out of this. Like for example, let's take you are in supply chain. So pick a kind of an use case or a problem to solve. Let's say one of the use cases, I want to build a report on a very simple report on a difference between the quantities in the purchase order versus quantities in the invoice, a very simple report. And now to achieve that kind of report, I'm going to learn Python. So that when you are learning Python, you are not just learning some theoretical knowledge, you have an objective in mind. So that's where you are looking for. So find out how to apply this particular tool rather than just learning something for the sake of learning. So if you focus on the objective, things would be much easier. You'll be able to find out the right materials as well. The number two is even today, true, there is so much of knowledge in the internet. So that's where the credentials really come into the picture. Rather than just going and learning things from Tom, Dick, and Harry, for example, if you see there is a course from Microsoft, for example, definitely you can give it a shot. Of course, after a few minutes, you'll come to know whether it's really valuable or not. But at least you have some kind of a relevance, which is, or a starting point to go with. Same with Coursera. If you see there is a course from John Hopkins, it is one of the top universities in the world. They won't create some kind of an useless course, right? So it's so leverage those kind of big giants and start working on those programs as well. Yeah. So and of course, social media, leverage those kind of people. Ask your network, ask your colleagues, ask. So the so if you don't ask this, today's LinkedIn post, I put something a few minutes back about my career experience. So one of the lessons which I told was, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I'll just give very small example, and so my daughter, she is, as I told you, is in Canada now, and she is into the Huron Western University. And this year she had some problem with the grade, and more or less she lost her, scholarship, and just about 2 marks or something like that, right? And then I asked her, why don't you just write a mail? Why don't you just explain that this is a very alien environment of studying online, and it may not be most easy for me to do that, and I still scored as good as 80+% in the examination. So she said, no, 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 these are fixed rules, and colleges don't agree to this. We have been told very much in advance. I says, right, just write and say, can you help? And to our surprise, and not to my surprise, at least to her surprise, he came crying in the night and woke me up. He said, I said, I hope everything is all right. He says, you are right. I just got a confirmation and they have agreed to me to give my restore my, scholarship. So I totally agree with you. If you want help, ask for help. So there's another question, Prashant, which has come from Rajnikant Godwani, and he says, how is data analysis correlated to data storage oblique cloud computing?
some, actually, they're not directly related, but they're indirectly related. So the first element, like if you look at data storage, for example, and I mentioned about the four stages of the data lifecycle, which is capture, integration, data science, and data visualization. The data storage and the security applies to all the four stages. So at every point in time, the data is persisted or captured and stored in some kind of a database. So that's one thing. So data analytics is data, or you say, Rajnikant, I see that it's data analysis. So I'm assuming that you are using the word analysis and analytics interchangeably. So data analytics per se is not directly related to storage. So storage would be a different area, which is mostly centered around IT these days, which is to do with all the areas of the data lifecycle. So cloud computing, for example, these days is, or at least in the last 8-10 years, for example, is the tendency is to move away the data center from the company's control to the cloud, which is managed by some big companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, and so on. So cloud computing again has got three flavors now, three main flavors, which is infrastructure, where you manage your servers, storage, and everything. Then you have your platforms, including your applications, and ultimately your software. But now we have gone to the next level, where we are also moving the data to the cloud. For instance, like Snowflake, for instance, where you are trying to move the data warehouse to the cloud as well. And of course, data is there in all the places. So data analysis, I would try to separate it from storage and computing. Storage and cloud computing is right now is more about a technology focus, whereas data analytics is more about business.
Yeah, yeah. So, any other question? Let's check. I think there are no more questions, and it's been a wonderful. I would not, keep you waiting from the bed, because and this is what, Saturday out there, Saturday night.
Yeah, now it is Sunday early morning, Sunday 12 4 a.m.
Oh, okay, okay. So it's going to be 12 shortly in India, the lunchtime. Thank you so much, Prashant, for being there. There is another question which has just popped in, and I would not, not let this go. Could you guide us by giving some advice for people uh, who served around 14 years of the nation to the nation for the nation and wants to pursue a higher education like MBA from abroad? How should one go about it? So I presume Vikram V is an ex-defense officer, and we would definitely, respect his thing. He wants to pursue MBA from a foreign university. How does he go about it? He has got 14 years of service in the Indian Army or Air Force.
Yeah. So that's a Vikram. That's a big question. So, but I'll give you some kind of pointers at least, and people like Atul can also help. And there are many places to you can go for. So one of the things, if you look at abroad, I'm assuming that you want to do it from a good school, and most of the good schools these days look for GMAT as one of the credentials. So the first thing is to look for is to take this GMAT and get a score. And once you get a good score, for example, and I'm assuming you're from the Defense Forces, which is one of the highly respected and professionals, and the people that are from the Defense Force are highly enterprising, smart. They can articulate things well, and and if you have a good GMAT score, I'm pretty sure you can aspire to join some of the top business schools in the world, like Harvard or Kellogg or those kind of places. So the first point is first step I would say is would be GMAT.
Let me do my marketing, self marketing, Prashant. I came out of the army and I was just an MBA, and then I went through and I decided to pick up the best institute across the country and the world. So the education comes from IIM Calcutta, ISB Hyderabad, IIT Delhi, Kellogg School of Management Chicago, and MIT Boston. So it is all, and subsequently I became a coach and a career professional from UCal Berkeley, Greater Good Science Center. That's what they call it, and Science of Happiness at Work. So if you have to do it, and I would tell Vikram, if you have to do it, you got to put in effort, but do it from a good place, right? Because the dividends which you will get is lifelong, right? So, one of the things which attracted me to Prashant was because he comes from my institute, and I said, oh, he comes from Kellogg, so I have all the rights to request him to, join our session, and we have been connected for last 1.5. COVID did good to us, Prashant, that because we became more digital people, right, and we could connect from across the world.
Yeah.
There's one last question I will take. One more dilemma, sir. There's don't seem to be any new ideas. Seems all are taken. Oh, Manoj, that has been the problem with everyone. Newton always thought apple is for eating, right? Unless until it fell on its hand. Had Newton also thought the same thing that all ideas are taken, then I think this is a relevant question across all times of the world, right, Prashant?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. All ideas are taken. There are new problems and new opportunities as well. Like initially, if you look at space travel, for example, earlier it used to be between fight between governments. Now the space travel has become fight between the rich people, right? And who knows, in the next few years, instead of going on a vacation to Hawaii, you and me might be going on a vacation to space, for example. Things are changing. There's a lot, but I don't think all ideas are taken. Yeah. So
Yes, and I'll
yeah.
tell you what you just to close this session. Things are changing very fast. 200 years. So let me build this entire thing, which I always do in one of my sessions when I talk about supply chain technology. It is 4 billion years back the Earth was formed. Around 300,000 years back, human being came out as a species. It's just about 70,000 years back that they moved from East Africa to rest of the world. It's just about 12,000 years back that we created our first societies. It is 200 years back that we created the first industrial revolution. Computers came into our life just about 60 years back. The fourth industry, that is Industry 4.0, has just started. From 1G to 5G, the life has been just about 7 to 8 years now. And look at the Apple phone. Now it brings out two models every year. And this is how it is moving. Every knowledge you gain becomes irrelevant by the time you pass out from your college. So this is what my request would be. Nothing is irrelevant. You have to keep working towards it. And one clue which I can give you, if it is a problem to anyone or the larger world, that is the place you should be finding that idea how to resolve it. That, you know, that is the answer which people are looking. Everything which has come into the world started with a problem the world was facing, be it car, be it for mobile, be it anything which has been successful was once a problem which someone solved. Thank you so much, Prashant. And again, I would allow you to go back to your bed. And thank you, everyone, sparing your wonderful time on a Sunday morning. But I'm sure this would have helped you, because I always believe it's good to invest in your career, right? And thank you so much. Join us again for a great session on Coffee with Founders. We have also brought in another program called the Office Talk. We used to earlier call it cut the office clutter, but people requested make it smaller, so it's called Office Talk. It is broadcast twice a week. It is just about 5 minutes. It tells you about very relevant topics. It tells you how to handle boss, how to handle a bad email. It tells you how to grow in your life, how to avoid toxic environment, how to change career, anything, how to manage your desk for that matter in office, right? So join me next week for the Office Talk. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again for everyone to join us.